Started. Welcome everyone to Let's Talk, virtual Share the Love event. My name is Matthew Lennick. I'm a board member here at Share. I'll be one of your moderators this afternoon, along with fellow board member Elizabeth Fitzgerald, who you'll hear from shortly. This event had been planned for our annual meeting for donors, and we were going to combine it with our appreciation barbecue for volunteers this year. It's going to be a large in-person event, but unfortunately the pandemic had other plans for us, as it has for many of you. But it was important that we still held this event, even if virtual, so we could thank volunteers, supporters, and friends of Share. And we also realized that many of you probably have questions about the needs of our community's most vulnerable citizens and what is happening to help them in these times. So today you'll hear from Share staff who will explain some of the changes that have taken place with Share's programs and services, and you'll also get a partner report from the Council for the Homeless. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the virtual torch to Elizabeth. She's going to give you an overview of the meeting structure, our panel, and get us going.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you everybody who's choosing to attend on this alternative platform of Zoom. I know some of us are more familiar with this than others, depending on how much we've been needing to use Zoom or something similar during the pandemic. So when you joined, there was a screen share that indicated that everybody who is attending has been muted. That means your microphone and your video. So if you can only see a few boxes of our friendly faces, that is normal. If you are trying to say something and we can't hear you, that's also normal. But we do encourage questions throughout. So down at the bottom of your screen, depending on how big your screen is, there's two little speech bubbles next to each other that say Q&A. Any questions that you have, you just click there and you type in your questions. Depending on how many we get and how urgent we think they are to answer in the moment, we'll try to address as many of those as possible. But after the event, we will be sending out a complete question and answer document to everybody who has attended. So don't worry if your question is not answered in the moment, we will get an answer out to everybody. And if you do not have any questions right now, doesn't look like it, then I'm gonna pass to Adam, who's our lovely board president, to kick us off.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And thank you all for being here. I'm currently Adam, or I am Adam Roselli. I'm currently our board president here at Share. And we really appreciate everyone who took the time to register and to be here to attend tonight's event. While we certainly wish that we could meet in person, right now, obviously virtual connections are the best way for us to keep our communities safe. So once again, thank you for being intimately involved with Share and to taking your time today. We do want to take a moment to acknowledge that for thousands of individuals and businesses, today was a blackout day, a pause in business as usual in honor of the peaceful protests that are being held, the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as the unfortunate death of George Floyd. Our event this afternoon was scheduled months ago. It was originally an in-person event, and then that moved to a virtual one in response to the COVID-19 crisis. But Share serves a vulnerable population, and we felt that it was very, very important to hold our event as scheduled, so that way we could talk about the increased need of this incredibly vulnerable population of the homeless and low income here in our community. And their families during these unprecedented times. So once again, thank you. And I'm happy to report that despite the crisis, Share does continue to fulfill its mission each and every day, perhaps more than now that we need them most. Our shelters and housing programs are open. Our hot meal program is providing nutritious meals every single day at unprecedented levels. Our backpack program continues to get 900 plus bags of food to children and their families each and every week. And that's through incredible partnerships that we have with the Evergreen, Vancouver, and Battleground school districts. Our outreach team and outreach program continues to provide street outreach as well as a needle exchange program. And our housing navigators continue to move shelter residents into permanent housing. As an essential agency, we are just so incredibly thankful to all of our staff members that are out there working extremely hard, putting themselves potentially at risk to help those in need of our community. Many of our staff are on the front lines. They're providing shelter, they're creating housing, they're providing outreach to those on our streets, serving meals, and they're working face-to-face with clients who are in need. So we can't thank them enough, and we are so incredibly blessed and fortunate to have the staff that we have at Share. We also have an incredible gathering of panelists that will be extremely informative, giving you an update of Share today. And so without further ado, they'll give you an update both at Share, and then we're so fortunate to have Kate Budd with the Council for the Homeless, who all together can help explain and discuss how we are rising together as a community to help heal and address this crisis during the pandemic. So without further ado, it is more than my pleasure to introduce Amy Reynolds. Amy has been with Share for I believe 18, 19 years, a long time. We're very, very fortunate to have her. She is currently Share's Deputy Director. So without further ado, Amy Reynolds.
Thank you, Adam. I'm Amy Reynolds. I'm the Deputy Director for Share, and I'm privileged to say it has been 19 years. Usually we spend time at this meeting talking about the past year, but as a nation, as a community, as members of this world, we've really been focused on COVID and what that has meant. And for the past couple of months, this has been a challenging and anxiety-filled time for all of us, our staff, our clients, our volunteers. And it's also been part of ongoing evidence of our adaptability, creativity, resilience, and commitment to the people that we serve. As an agency, we've spent the past 40 years really relying on volunteers for our program, so we had to do some significant changes to be able to continue to operate. Our hot meals program has been largely entirely staffed by volunteers for that period of time, so we have ended up running an unintentional immersion program where we have had back-end staff who worked in development, who worked with our volunteers, who was a receptionist at the Fromhold Service Center, have all taken on opportunities for front client-facing jobs. So they have filled in those spots that had previously been occupied by volunteers in order to make our programs happen. So that meant for our hot meals program, back in February, we were serving about 3,500 meals a month. In March, we served 6,100 meals. In April, 6,800, and this past month, over 8,000. So our volunteers have been starting to come back. We have new protocols to try to make that happen. As Adam said, we've also continued to provide the backpack program that used to also be staffed by volunteers, and it took us about an hour and a half to give out about 1,400 packs. Over the past few months, that's been done by staff, and that means it takes us about 5 hours to get out about 900 packs, and these are going to the people that the schools identify as being in the most need. We've had many heartbreaking moments as businesses were closing. Some of them knew that they were closing permanently, and they would bring us their food and their supplies as we were able to grieve with our community with losses of both people and of economic opportunities. Our shelters have also gone through changes. We've added in triage protocols to discover if people are ill, asking them about their conditions. We've partnered with St. Andrew Lutheran Church to continue to provide the Winter Hospitality Overflow Program for families and single women long after April. Really appreciate their ongoing support. Currently, we're able to be there serving 30 people until June 15th, and at that time, the church will reevaluate if they're going to resume some kind of services or if we would be able to continue to stay. They've been very kind and generous in offering this warm opportunity. Because we had staff from our family shelters, as you may know, our family shelters were being renovated. These are really interesting times. Over the past year, Share Orchards Inn was closed in July with the Housing Authority. They're the property owner for that property and really came through with helping us find places for people to be on a temporary basis. Starting back in July, people were able to be housed, and that has continued as COVID was coming into our community, and we were all recognizing that we needed to make significant changes. We had begun to do renovations at Homestead. The plan was that that would continue while we were there in the early stages, but having construction workers there, as people had growing anxiety about being around others and how that was safe for all, began to be really difficult. We reached out to the Housing Authority again, and with the support of the Community Foundation, we're able to move people from that congregate environment into individual housing, thanks to the Housing Authority, where people have either continued to stay or have moved from there into permanent housing. Because we were going through all of these transitions with our family shelters, when we had the opportunity to make the Winter Hospitality Overflow Program, go 24/7, we were able to quickly adapt that and have those doors be open. We've continued, as Adam mentioned, to support people in our supported housing programs. So our case managers are still reaching out to people who are in our housing programs, helping them pay their rent, and then also helping them battle with their own anxieties. Our HEN program specifically, Housing and Essential Needs, which is for our clients who are temporarily unable to work due to a mental health, physical health, or substance use disability. We served about 104 in February. We've since been able to add 35 people to that program, helping them get housed, and we have another 8 that are just waiting for their housing to open. We've already paid their rent. They're just waiting for that unit to be available. So we've really been able to increase our opportunities during this time, thanks to our incredible community. Our outreach team, as Adam mentioned, is continuing to be out in the street, engaging with people, letting them know about what opportunities are still available. And our individual development account program, which is our savings program for people starting a small business or going back to school or even buying a house. From January through March, we added about 2 people to that program. From March until today, we've added 18. We have this incredibly resilient and creative community as people have no longer been able to have the fiscal opportunity that they had before through their employment. People have been reaching out to look at other opportunities for either going back to school virtually or for being able to start their own business and figure out how to innovate and move forward. So these are challenging times, and we continue to be impressed by the resiliency and creativity of our staff, the people we serve, and our community. We have Katie Lewis, our Collaborative Housing Program Director, to tell you more about that.
Hi, sorry, another Zoom thing. Forgot to unmute. It's Katie. I'm so happy to be here with you guys again this year, even if it's virtually. I do look forward to a time when I get to see all of you in person again. I just wanted to give you a brief update on how our shelters have responded during this pandemic time. Late last year, we decided to go vulnerability based, which means that all of our shelter beds are prioritized for people that are medically fragile and at high risk for severe illnesses and have pretty significant behavioral health situations going on. This means that almost every one of our clients fall into what the CDC describes as a vulnerable population, and they're at serious risk for contracting COVID-19. That meant we had to act pretty quickly and respond and try to figure out what we were going to do to try to make sure everybody was safe. With the help of our CDM in-home caregivers, we quickly implemented health and sanitation processes for the building and for the residents. We began asking COVID triage questions daily, implemented hourly sanitation of all of our commonly touched surfaces, started wearing masks, and also provided masks to our guests and helped model good social distancing, if that's possible in a shelter setting. We also created a process or followed a process that the Council for the Homeless in the county laid out for us on what to do if somebody does answer yes to any of those triage questions. We also immediately ensured that every one of our clients had at least 6 feet of space between them to be able to try to physically distance. we discovered that we were actually one of the lucky shelters. We are not only able to help people have 6 feet of space in their common sleeping areas, but also in some cases had more than 6 feet available to people. And that actually meant that we did not need to eliminate any of our shelter beds. And that was really exciting. We definitely didn't want to serve less people if we were able to not have to do that. But we also were able to collaborate with Council for the Homeless and the county to move some of our highly vulnerable residents out of the congregate shelter setting and into the Q&I motel. That's the quarantine and isolation motel, where we continue to provide CDM in-home caregiving services and housing navigation services to them in hopes that we move them directly from the shelter or from the hotel into a permanent housing situation. I'm really proud to say that even with all the added precautions and health and safety concerns, SHARE staff came together to ensure that, like Amy said, St. Andrew Who was open, and also that we here at Share House were able to keep the seasonal overflow going, which is an additional 15 spaces for people during this time. And in total, we can continue to shelter an additional 45 people during the stay-at-home safety order. I have had countless impressive experiences during this time and have experienced firsthand the adaptability and the flexibility of our amazing frontline staff. As you know, life goes on during the pandemic, and some of our most seasoned long-term employees either had to deal with personal stuff going on or decided to take a little bit of time off or distance a little bit due to family that may be immunocompromised or whatever. But that, as you know, can leave us maybe a little understaffed or need a little bit people to step up and do a little bit more. And that absolutely happened here. I've watched employees willingly and excitingly volunteer to work other programs, learn housing navigation duties, learn more health and safety and sanitation duties, which isn't always people's favorite thing to do, but also our job is to make sure that people are healthy and safe. Recently, one of our engagement specialists assisted a resident in lease signing, getting their keys, and physically moving them with their belongings and other donated belongings into a place. And that was just such a rewarding experience for somebody that doesn't typically get to do those duties, and just said that the experience was inspiring and rejuvenated their passion for this work. Their commitment to providing a safe and healthy place for people to shelter and their dedication to our goal of moving residents from shelter and into housing quickly is overwhelmingly impressive to me. Lastly, I can't miss out on an opportunity to shine a light on the strength and resilience of the residents and the clients and the people that we serve. Even though it felt like the world had shut down, they persevered, they took the opportunity to engage and learn and teach us how to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. Since the stay-at-home order has been in place, 13 residents have moved out from Share House. I guess I didn't look at the totality of all the shelters, but speaking for Share House, 13 residents have moved out into permanent housing situations. 51 of the 54 residents we have in shelter have completed housing assessments. Many more have completed the U.S. Census. They've applied for benefits. They've placed themselves on Vancouver Housing Authority wait lists and housing wait lists, and even more have actually started working and moved out on their own too. So they did not lose sight of their goal, and we've been honored to be a part of that success. So thank you for being a part of ensuring that all people have the ability to stay safe during this time. And I'm going to pass it along to Kate Budd, the Executive Director of the Council for the Homeless, to do a partner update.
Thanks, Katie. Like Katie mentioned, my name is Kate Budd, and I have the extreme pleasure of serving as the Executive Director with the Council for the Homeless. And we are the coordinating planning body here in Clark County around reducing the number of people who are experiencing homelessness in Clark County. And what they had asked me to focus on in this event was really around the COVID response, which you've already heard, thanks to the amazing work of SHARE, has been considerable. In our community, the number of shelter beds during the non-winter months are relatively low compared to the number of people who are experiencing homelessness. And during the COVID crisis, that number has more than doubled. Much of it thanks to Share, also thanks to other providers and faith-based communities here in Clark County, as well as thanks to the county and their efforts creating a quarantine and isolation motel just east of 205. That motel serves people who are positive for COVID or have come in contact with people who are positive for COVID, but then also has a separate section for people who are deemed at high risk of COVID. And that high risk, or often they refer to it as expanded shelter part of the motel, is currently serving 53 households, which is very impressive. What it allowed our community to do is that once COVID started, we placed numerous households in motels across the county. And that is often a very expensive venture. And so after about 6 weeks of doing that, having the COVID expanded shelter part of the motel open allowed those folks to move from just the nightly motel situations into the expanded shelter opportunity where they could stay for a much longer period of time. We also have been working on increasing the opportunities for people experiencing homelessness to be tested. And so many people who are without homes have been tested due to being symptomatic of COVID in partnership with Clark County Public Health and the Vancouver Clinic. But we also, in the last few weeks, have been able to open up testing opportunities to folks who are living in congregate shelters here in Clark County. And that's been a great opportunity to really see, do we have people who are asymptomatic that might be COVID positive? And do we want to make sure that we get them into the quarantine and isolation motel? We've been fortunate in that there isn't widespread challenges with COVID and those who are unhoused, but we also want to make sure that we're taking the necessary precautionary measures in everything that we do. We're also incredibly grateful for the faith communities here in Clark County who have stepped up in so many ways to help address the basic needs as well as emergency shelter needs of people experiencing homelessness. Living Hope Church is absolutely one of those. They have been providing, really since the beginning of the COVID crisis, an opportunity for people without homes and just general community members to receive a lunch on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sundays. They also have provided access to clothes and food boxes on Wednesday and Sundays. And then just recently, in the past few weeks, they started a tent encampment for folks who had nowhere else to camp in partnership with the City of Vancouver and the Council for the Homeless. And that's been an amazing effort, and we really appreciate Living Hope for all their work to make that happen. We also want to recognize our Safe Park locations. We have 10 different churches across Clark County who open up their parking lots as well as place a porta potty for people to utilize while they spend the night in their car because they have nowhere else to go. Those Safe Park locations house over 70 different households in the community. And we're really fortunate that they share their space with us, as well as Go Connect, which is a local nonprofit agency. We also want to recognize the increased need that we have for rent assistance in the community. As you know, people have been greatly affected by the COVID crisis, and it has been difficult for them to pay their rent. And even though there's an eviction moratorium today, that may end very soon. And so people have been reaching out for rental assistance help now for months. And so we want to recognize the Community Foundation of Southwest Washington for their amazing generosity of rent assistance support, not only to our agency, but also to many of the culturally specific agencies here in Clark County who have been able to provide rent assistance to many, many households. And we know that that will continue even if the eviction moratorium ends. And then lastly, we want to share that the Washington Recovery Alliance opened up the Fourth Plane Pit Stop about a few weeks into the COVID crisis. And that was in response to just a severe lack of options for people without homes to wash their hands and use the restroom. With the day center closing due to the city of Vancouver not being able to staff it with necessary precautionary measures, it left people without options to meet those COVID requirements to be safe. And so at that point, they opened up that pit stop and provided much needed services, and we appreciate that. Regarding needs, the greatest need right now is around basic needs. So hygiene items, providing masks are still needed. The sanitizers are still needed. And so I know that SHARE has a list, Council for the Homeless has an Amazon wish list. Faith communities also have needs. And so feel free to reach out and find out what might be needed, as well as volunteering. That is very much needed across the county. And I know Council for the Homeless, we have a website that includes the volunteer needs that we're aware of. And of course, SHARE has many on their website as well. So we just want to thank everyone for their incredible support of people without homes during this crisis. It is certainly exacerbating all of the challenges that they deal with to not have the usual places that they can go and access in order to meet their needs. So thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Molly, the Director of Volunteers.
All right, thank you, Kate. So hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I am Molly, SHARE's Director of Volunteers and Community Resources. This is a position that I absolutely love because I get the opportunity to work with so many incredible people that are willing to help. And I'm just inspired daily by our volunteers. So we were unable to have our annual gathering this year. So we've chose the virtual option, and I wanted to take a moment to thank all of our volunteers who give time to share throughout the year and to serve our community. Over these past couple months, we have definitely seen new challenges as many of our regular volunteers have been unable to serve due to stay-at-home orders, self-quarantine, and we also asked that our at-risk volunteers stay home during this time. You guys are very important to us, and we didn't want to put you at risk. But we do want to let you know that we really miss you, and we look forward to welcoming you back when you are ready. So definitely reach out, you know, as things develop and as it gets safe for you to volunteer again. For most of March and into April, our volunteer base essentially dropped to 0 for the backpack program, hot meals program, and we also had to cancel most of our other volunteer activities and events. At that same time, as you heard from Amy and Katie, we saw meal counts double, and in this past month in May, we saw them more than double from where we were in February. During that time, we also felt the urgency of getting food out through our backpack program to families. So during those early weeks when the crisis began, we had staff jumping in to try to fill your shoes. We did the best that we could. During that time, we all learned a lot about ourselves. We learned a lot about our volunteers and the work that you do. And we also had the opportunity to learn a lot about the clients that we serve. So for the backpack program, it took a small group of staff, you know, nearly 6 hours to do what our amazing volunteers typically accomplish in about an hour and a half. At Hot Meals, my puppies are back here getting a little bit feisty, apologize. At Hot Meals, we saw firsthand the deep gratitude from our guests, and we had the opportunity to interact face-to-face with those that we serve. That was a huge reward after, hours of preparing vegetables, making sandwiches, bagging meals. We were really thankful to be able to serve our guests and to have zero gaps in that service. We are very thankful for the time that our volunteers donate to our community. In those toughest times early on in the crisis, we realize how much we need you. We cannot do this work without you. And this experience has really solidified bonds between our SHARE staff. And I think we will forever be more accountable to each other and to you. So as we move forward into April and May, we were able to welcome back volunteers onto the team. And wow, you guys have been putting in an amazing effort. This past month in May, we saw 57 different individuals volunteer at Share House. And those volunteers put in over 500 hours putting together those over 8,000 meals. At the backpack program, we saw about over 30 individuals putting together those bags and getting them out to our families. Typically, we would be seeing about 120 unique individuals, so we do really miss you guys. Tucker. Sorry, guys. Another Zoom thing. We've also seen a lot of innovation in how volunteers are helping out and how the community is helping out. We've seen a lot of really amazing notes come in, cheering on staff. We've had handmade notes come in that we are then able to send out to families and to our volunteers to let everybody know that we're thinking of you and you guys are loved. I'm sorry, you guys. We've had a lot of amazing donations come in, mask makers, personal hygiene supplies, cleaning supplies, and just want everybody to know to keep up that good work. It's definitely paying off, so keep taking care of each other. If you are interested in volunteering right now, we do have some needs. We are preparing to start our summer meals program at the end of this month, and are planning on continuing serving hot meals, 3 meals a day, Monday through Friday, 2 meals on the weekends. So if you are interested in helping out, get in touch, check out our website. We also just launched an online registration system, so you can pop on there and check it out. I think that's about all I have. One of our volunteers did just remind us of this quote that not everyone can do everything, but everyone can do something. And we just want all of you to know that all of your somethings are really important to share. And I hope to see you soon. I'm going to pass it off to Elizabeth, our board member, who will handle our question and answer section. All right, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Molly. And thank you, everybody who was able to share a little bit with our attendees today about what's going on with SHARE today and in the future. So I have a couple questions, and if the panelist who's most interested in answering that wants to just give me a show of a hand, and I'll pass to you. We heard from Council for the Homeless, but are there other organizations that have helped support SHARE's work during this crisis? Amy.
Absolutely. We are so fortunate to have this incredible community who has been able to support us and support each other. So as usual, the Clark County community, the Clark County Food Bank, we wouldn't be able to provide any food programs without them. They're amazing. Katie referenced CDM, which is an agency that is located in the parking lot here at the Fromhold Service Center and has been providing services at Share House and at Lincoln Place, making it possible for people who struggle with activities of daily living such as bathing or toileting or being able to get their basic needs met. And they've been incredible through all of this process and helping people be able to continue to move forward. And so many more. Kate mentioned the Community Foundation of Southwest Washington. We wouldn't be able to do so much work without them. Peace Health has also come forward with funds. We have an incredible adaptive community, and this crisis has really given people the opportunity and the freedoms to recognize that we all have rules and the way things usually go, and then there's a way to do it differently. So many of our funders have added in waivers and abilities to allow us to do things differently. And I worry that I'm frozen.
Great. And Katie, did you want to add to that?
I did. Just a couple more people. We've been working really, really closely with all these social workers at Peace Health and Salmon Creek Legacy to be able to ensure that everybody's healthy and safe. And they've just provided a wealth of knowledge of the best way that we can support our residents. Also, we have guests that are neighbors that are outside again, and we responded by doing a little bit of a quasi outreach, allowing keeping our bathrooms open downstairs, having a phone that's easily sanitizable for people to be able to call the council and other places they need. But I could not be doing what we're doing right now without the help of not just SHARE's outreach team, but Community Services Northwest outreach team, Columbia River Mental Health, collaborating with them. But there's just so many people that have come out and want to be present and help people accomplish whatever goal they have and provide whatever basic need they can. So
great. Thank you both. I know that a few of you spoke to this a little bit, but if you could elaborate on some of the barriers that people living outside are facing, maybe specifically during this pandemic, or barriers that may have been exacerbated by this pandemic. Amy.
Yeah, so the people that we serve are experiencing, same as the rest of us, a lot of anxiety, and they're also experiencing that everything is closed. So there are often not a lot of places for people to go, but especially during COVID, if you are unhoused, there are even less places to go for all the basic needs, bathrooms, other resources. The Council for the Homeless has kept an updated list on their website that's been updated daily to be able to tell people in the community about what is open and what isn't open in this changing environment. This is not the best environment for people who have anxiety. So, once again, some people who are housed have anxiety and some people who are unhoused have anxiety. And this can be very difficult as people are going through this as a community, as a world together, to have both the helpers being in crisis alongside the people who they were intending to help being in crisis. So it's just been barrier after barrier, and as we've said, the incredible resiliency of our team, of the community, of the people we serve has just been proven time and time again.
Great, thank you, Amy. And piggybacking on that a little bit, how are people experiencing homelessness getting medical care if they do get sick? Katie.
Well, we've been pretty fortunate in helping people access urgent care, or, in certain cases, emergency care when they need. We've also been able to work with like the crisis team if somebody is in crisis to help them get the help they need to. I just think that the open communication that we have with the hospitals, very direct and open with the social workers, have helped facilitate our clients, residents, and people we serve to be able to access whatever medical care they need. We haven't ever felt like somebody has told us, not to come to the doctor if we need, or seek medical care if somebody needs it. We've also adapted, and we go and pick up prescriptions so that people that may not feel safe out in the community, we'll pick up prescriptions. We advocate over the phone, in video, however we can, for people that are accessing care in our different healthcare facilities around here, but we do whatever we can to help them get the help they need.
And Amy.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one more point. I want to give a shout out to Clark County Public Health and the Vancouver Clinic. They've been doing testing in congregate shelters, and that has included Share House, St. Andrew, at the What, and well, it's not a shelter that'll take place tomorrow at Lincoln Place, for the idea of knowing if people are asymptomatic and are unintentionally carrying COVID, whether they be staff or clients. So we want to be sure that everybody is safe, and we really appreciate having that opportunity.
Great, thank you both. So if somebody is ready to sign up to volunteer, how do they do that? Molly.
Yeah, so if you are wishing to sign up to volunteer, you can actually visit our website and check out the volunteer page. We do now have an online registration system to make it a little bit easier for volunteers and for staff to set schedules. You can also reach out and email me. You can find my email online. And yeah, we'd love to get you involved.
Great, thank you very much, Molly. Also, do you anticipate the economic downturn will impact SHARE's capacity to provide services? Amy.
You know, Elizabeth, not one of us can see the future. I feel that the COVID pandemic is going to affect a lot of things, probably for a long time to come. You know, as we've said, our community has been amazing in stepping up and anticipating some of those gaps and trying to fill that, both as private individuals and as institutions. As people know, the federal government had the CARES Act, and some of that money will be coming to our community, to our local jurisdictions at the city and the county as an attempt to respond to that. And the hope is that that will be in addition to funds that are already here. I'm sure there will also be a need to backfill. So SHARE, like a lot of nonprofits, is anticipating that we will have a struggle in raising private dollars and being able to meet the need of the future. It's an ongoing concern for us and something that we're trying to stay in front of, with the idea that we would continue to do more and not step back in this time of crisis.
Great. Just got a couple Q&As, so I'm just going to read those really quickly. All right, this is a great one. In the summer meals program, there's often groups that work closely in an assembly line sort of fashion. So can you describe how that will be set up this summer to comply with social distancing? Molly.
Well, Amy can feel free to add in. So we are scheduling smaller groups than we have in the past to allow for, so sorry, my dog is very.
I'm going to pass to Amy.
As well, I said, we are scheduling smaller groups, which is probably going to make the experience slightly more intense. Historically, we've actually used a school property for the past several years. We've been at Covington. The schools are going through their own crisis. We reached out to St. Joe's, and St. Joe's Catholic Church that is just up the street from the Fromhold Service Center on Andreessen. It's a nice big space, and we're going to be doing some of the preparation, not actually in the kitchen space, but in their much larger dining space, which will definitely allow for the 6 feet apart, even if we had as many as 10 or more volunteers to be able to help us. So we are anticipating that there will be more staff and less volunteers than in other years. In addition, when people are bringing the meals, it'll be less of a congregate experience and more of an opportunity for people to grab the meals and go. We receive funding from the state to be able to operate the summer meals program, and they've also had waivers. So historically, they've required us to observe the children eating on site, and all of that is being waived so we can meet the needs and the health needs of our community. So it'll be a grab and go situation and not congregate at the site where we're preparing meals and at the sites where we're providing them.
Great. And we have a couple people who are video muted from staff. One of them had indicated they may be answering this question. Is there anything to add, Kim? Okay, great. So I'm not seeing any further questions. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Adam.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you to our panel. We are so very, very fortunate to be part of this community. Donors stepping up, contributing much needed financial support as we lost important funding because of having to cancel our 2 major fundraisers. We've had volunteers step up, risking their own health to make sure our community's most vulnerable are taken care of. Restaurants uncertain of their own viability, they're donating their food and supplies to help out our populations. Major local institutions and partners like the Community Foundation putting together a fund specifically for those adversely affected by COVID-19. Our faith community living and acting upon their beliefs, willing to step up and help those who are in need. Staff working extra hours and doing tasks outside of what is on their typical job description and job requirement. It's incredible, everybody stepping up. Homelessness and need. It doesn't slow down in times of crisis. It cannot go into quarantine. The vulnerable population we serve has had their daily lives made even more challenging and more difficult because of COVID-19. Accessing meals and food programs, securing employment, or housing, paying monthly bills and caring for themselves and their family. They were challenging before the crisis and are now even more difficult. And during those times of crisis, there is greater need and a greater strain on the limited resources. And so with such, we are so very, very lucky to be part of a community that recognizes such and steps in and donates their time and their talents and their treasure. So I want to just say on behalf of the board and the entire organization at SHARE, thank you. Thank you so much for what you do for us and for our community. So with that, we do have a door prize. So we have a lovely basket that we've put together. You have to be present to win, but to try to make it more fun than just a computer automated number generator. I got some dice, and on my computer, I have everyone who registered assigned to a number. So my math might be slow, but we'll see here who the lucky winner is, and then hopefully it's one of the first people that I pick. So let's see, 1924, 28 is lucky Sue Young. Sue, are you? It looks like you're here. Perfect. Awesome. She raised her hand. So Sue, thank you so much for what you do for our organization. I will connect you. I believe that our Stephanie Kolb, our development coordinator, I believe she has your contact information. If you want to go ahead and just make sure in the Q&A, if you want to give a good phone number or email address, we'll make sure that we connect with you and either have you pick it up at the phone hold center or we'll be happy to deliver it to your house. So with that said, thank you for joining us on this quite strange, quite unique, hopefully never again version and edition of our annual meeting. So with that, take care of yourselves. Best of health to you and your family. Thank you.